Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. We are about to start the session. I hope everybody is comfortable and registered so that we know who is in the room and so that everybody has all the necessary things that they need to have. My name is Mtokozi Sempofu from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. I will be program directing the activities of the day. Hopefully I will get the necessary cooperation so that we run smoothly, to be able to achieve the objectives that are set for this BRICS, for the 5th BRICS Youth Energy Summit. As I said that my task is just to make sure that the proceeding goes as planned. I must also mention that I believe there is a link for the session wherein we've got these people who are logged in online from the partner countries, as well as other additional people who are supportive of BRICS initiatives. So I hope that link is active. So without any further ado, I will just reintroduce myself. I'm Mtokozi Sempofu from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, being tasked with program directing the session of today. So basically, as we are here, we are aware that BRICS is an alliance of countries mainly it's an alliance, but obviously we've got other additional countries that I believe are here in the room that would like to be part of these auspicious occasions. So we really, really appreciate the cooperation and the support that we are receiving from people beyond just the BRICS Alliance. So as I said, that we are starting today with the opening ceremony. What we have today, we have opening remarks that will be done by the following speakers. I will just name them, then they will come to the podium one by one to basically give us their remarks and addresses. First, we have Mr. Alexander Commission, whom is the chairperson of the BRICS Youth Energy Agency. Could you stand up so that, and give him just a round of applause for being here. Secondly, we've got Mr. Wasim Karim, whom is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Development Agency, NYDA. We also have Mr. Jacob Mbele, the Director General of Mineral Resources and Energy of the Republic of South Africa. So in the interest of time, I would like to then give the floor to Mr. Alexander Commission, of the chairperson of the BRICS Youth Energy Agency, to give us his opening address. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to this 5th BRICS Youth Energy Summit. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody, and I guess I should congratulate you first because you finally made it to the 5th BRICS Youth Energy Summit, and I would like to congratulate not only the ones who are here, but also the ones who are online connected, because this is a massive work that we've been all doing together throughout the years. The 5th BRICS Youth Energy Summit is an annual one, so it is the 5th. We started with the good tradition to hold the gatherings of the BRICS Youth Energy Agency since 2018. Since then, we held successful 4 summits, and I believe that the 5th one will be not less successful. great thanks to the host, to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the partners who are sponsoring this amazing event, including the main partner, who is Rosatom, along with other partners, including South African Wind Energy Association. Would like to give thanks to EWSETA. Would like to thank Mintek. Would like to thank South African National Energy Development Institute, and many more who are supporting us in media, including the Geostrata and other partners that are supporting the BRICS Youth Energy Summit from their respective countries. I'd like to note that this specific event is not only for BRICS countries. It's about the global gathering of the so-called Global South. Today we have representatives not only from BRICS, but also for Africa, because it was set by DMRE as a priority for BRICS YA, because this summit was meant to be the summit of BRICS solutions, youth-led solutions for Africa. We are also very happy to note that here we have ladies and gentlemen coming from other countries that belong to the Global South. Maybe we should give a short introduction from the audience to make it more interactive. So let's start with the BRICS. If you're coming from BRICS, give me a huge hooray. Hooray! Very great. So if you're coming from countries, from other countries from Africa, but not South Africa, so give me a great hooray. Hooray! Got you. And people who are coming beyond African and BRICS countries, give me a great hooray. Hooray! Good. Even though we have those people attending here at the audience, it's a great pleasure to have you here. I'd like to note that this specific event is actually epitome of something that we call the BRICS Youth Energy Cooperation. It's always about people working together, finding solutions, presenting the outlooks and reports. It's about bringing people together who've been working throughout the year and throughout the previous years, because not each time we have an opportunity to bring you to the summit, and to keep connections for the future. Energy sector and energy itself is beyond to so many sectors and industries that you'd highly likely find yourselves in other sectors beyond energy, but you'll be the same community. You'll be working together with each other and building a stronger leadership and so-called thought leadership that is incredibly important to drive the energy sector forward. So by saying this, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being with us today, those who are in person, those who are connected online. I would like to thank beforehand those dignitaries who are attending the summit, not only right now, but also becoming in the following 9 sessions of the summit. And I'd like also to note that tomorrow we have amazing technical sites, thanks to the partners, that will enable your vision for what South Africa's energy landscape looks like, so that you could bring this experience back to your home countries and also find your BRICS and other country solutions for South Africa, and also to pave a successful way forward for the BRICS community. So thank you very much, and I wish you all a very happy summit, and I wish you all very much of productive work. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Commission. I think this summit, especially in the South African context, underscores the energy theme significantly, giving some of the challenges that we are going through as a country, but also given the fact that globally, energy has been a topical issue regarding some global developments. So I hope as this collective, we will take advantage of the situation and turn everything that has been negative into positives. And that should be the legacy that this summit leaves especially for South Africa, but also for Africa as well as the globe, because the challenges that energy is currently facing cuts across all geographies. With that, I will then like to welcome the next speaker, Mr. Wasim Karim. As a round of applause as he moves to the stage.
Okay. Rule number one, don't break the mic when you get here, yeah? Oh. Should I hold it? All right. Thanks very much. Oh, it feels so tense in here, huh? You know, we hosted the BRICS Youth Summit 2-3 weeks ago, and colleagues know that there's 5 themes to BRICS this year. Just energy transition is one of them. And it felt like we only really got the summit started when we got to just energy transition, yeah? There's nothing that sparks debate like a just energy transition. So I'm sure the summit is going to be very lit on those kind of discussions. But let me start this morning by recognizing the chairperson for the BRICS Youth Energy Agency, the Director General, and the DDGs for DMRE, the different leaders of youth formations, members of the media, young people, Sambonani, Dumelang, Moweni, Privayet, Namaste, Nihao, Hola. It is really lovely to be with you all this morning. Now, I think we know that over the last 5 years or so, but particularly over the last 3 years, we have taken on some of the most difficult challenges of our time. Yeah? In South Africa, we've had to rebuild our economy, we've had to navigate a global pandemic, we are playing our role in foreign diplomacy. But where we stand today, having overcome a number of challenges, I think we can be convinced that no challenge poses any greater threat to our future and future generations than a changing climate. And I think that's partially what brings us here today. Yeah. Now, I doubt everybody here is a scientist, but I'm sure we have some of the best scientists in the world in this room today. And I think what science has been showing us for a number of years is that human activities are changing the climate in dangerous ways. We know that levels of carbon dioxide, which heat up the atmosphere, are higher than they've ever been. And we see that we are setting records in terms of the warmest years in the last decade and the last 20 years particularly. 1 year doesn't make a trend, but all of the warmest years on record have fallen in the last 20 years of this century. Climate change is not something that we're talking about in the future or that we're predicting for our children or our children's children. It's the reality that we're living with every day right now. We can't say that every single weather event is caused by climate change, but we are seeing stronger storms, deeper droughts, and longer wildfire seasons. Over the last 30 years, asthma rates have more than doubled, and climate change puts people at greater risk of going to hospital. We are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change, but we are also the last generation that can actually do something about it. And that is why BRICS, and particularly young people within BRICS, must commit to leading the world on this challenge, because I think we do believe that there is something such as being too late. Most of the issues that cross our desks are very hard. Some of them are difficult. Some of them are heartbreaking. Some of them are frustrating. But most of the time we deal with issues that are temporary, yeah? And we can anticipate that over time, if we plug away at something, it will start to get better. But climate change is one of those rare issues because of how big it is, because of its magnitude, that if we don't get it right, we may never be able to reverse, and we may never be able to adapt sufficiently. There is something such as being too late when it comes to climate change. That shouldn't make us hopeless. It shouldn't feel like there's nothing we can do about it. We can take action. Over the last number of years, we have made significant strides in using clean energy, in reducing waste in the energy sector. We have doubled down our investments in renewable energy, right here in South Africa, we are now generating more wind power, more solar power than we have ever before. And these steps are making a difference. But if we want to protect our economies, our security, our health for the future, we have to do more. The science tells us that we have to do more. Yeah? We know that our power generation is the source of most of our carbon population. It generates more dirty energy than our cars, our airplanes, our homes generate combined. Yeah? And that pollution contributes to climate change, which degrades the air, which ultimately people end up breathing. For the sake of our young people and the safety of all of our people, something has to change. For the sake of the entire planet, something has to change. I don't think we have any doubts that this is the right thing to do. Here in South Africa, our Presidential Climate Commission have designed an internationally acclaimed just energy transition plan. They worked across the board with power companies, with environmental groups, with faith groups, and people across our country to make sure that what we are doing is realistic and achievable, but also ambitious. Yeah? There will always be critics of what we are trying to do. There will be cynics who say that it can't be done. They'll claim that we need to slash our investments in clean energy because it's a waste of money. They'll claim that we are leading a war on coal. They'll claim that this plan will kill jobs, even though our transition to a cleaner economy, for example, just in the solar industry, is creating jobs 10 times faster than the rest of the economy. Even more cynically, we have people who claim that this will harm minority and low-income communities, even though climate change hurts those people the most. It hurts the marginalized and the vulnerable much more than others. And here's the thing, we have heard all of these arguments in previous transitions and in previous revolutions. And every time we have made progress in spite of those claims. We can figure out these things so long as we are not lazy in our thinking about it, as long as we don't take the path of least resistance. Scientists, citizens, workers, entrepreneurs, together as BRICS countries, we can disrupt the old debates and change the old ways of thinking. Right now, across BRICS countries, we're investing entirely new technologies, new industries, not looking backwards, only forwards. And if we don't do it, then nobody else will. Yeah. I don't want to lie about what we're going through. I don't think any of this is going to be easy. Dealing with climate change in its entirety is a challenging prospect. No single country, no single action will change warming of the planet on its own. But today, with BRICS representing a new world order, we can lead the world on this initiative. And again, it is easy to be cynical and to say climate change is too big for humanity to solve. But I think we are absolutely convinced that that is the wrong way of thinking about it. We can solve this thing, but we have to get going. And I think it's exactly the kind of challenge that is big enough to remind us that we are all in this together. So much has changed between the first and the fourth industrial revolution. Our borders have shifted, generations have come and gone, and our global population has nearly doubled. But one thing that has not changed is that the planet is more beautiful than ever. It still looks blue, yeah? And it's vast, but it's also fragile, and it's miraculous, yeah? And the world belongs to all of us, to every single person who lives in it. There are 7 billion people today, no matter where they're from, what language they speak, every one of them can look and say, this is my home. And we are the first generation who are starting to feel the impact of climate change. But again, we are the last generation that can actually do something about it. We only get one home, yeah? We only get one planet. And there is no plan B here. So we don't want millions of people's lives to be disrupted and the world to be more dangerous because we didn't do something about it. This is our moment. It's our moment to get this right and to do something about it. Let's make the most of that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Kasim once again. Thank you. I think the last speaker mentioned something which is very important and critical as we embark on this world order, taking care of especially the just energy transition. What I've observed in the panel that I've had as part of the keynote addresses and remarks is that there is no female. I think that is something that has to be taken into account and consideration going forward. Because if we're really going to change the narrative, and as BRICS and partner countries must lead the way forward in this new order, we must, for us to be properly transitioning, we must take care of the gender aspect as well, the youth aspect as well, which is basically the dominant forces, that have been left behind for quite some time. So in our quest of changing the world order, we should basically address the gender parity issues. Without further ado, let me welcome on stage the Director General of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, Mr. Jacob Mpele.
Thank you, Program Director, Mr. Mpofu. Mr. Commission Chairperson of the BRICS Youth Energy Agency, Mr. Karim, the CEO of the NYDA, the National Youth Development Agency, Mr. Govenda Niveshan, the CEO of the South African Wind Energy Association, the representative of the various partners to this summit present here and those online, delegates from the BRICS member countries, delegates from other African countries present here and online, delegates from the public and private sector institutions, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, it is an honor. Apologies. On behalf of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy here in South Africa, it is an honor and privilege to address and welcome you to this 5th BRICS Youth in Energy Summit held here in Johannesburg, South Africa. This event takes place during Women's Month in South Africa, a month where we celebrate women's milestones and their extraordinary roles and contribution in all spheres of society. And I think the organizers have noted the comments from the program director about representation in terms of the speakers this morning, especially during this month of August. To all the women in this room, happy Women's Month to all of you. And I speak on behalf of all the men in here and online. We appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, the BRICS Youth in Energy Summit event continues to grow in stature, as was shared with you earlier by the chairperson, Mr. Commission, in his address. It is encouraging to see that as BRICS countries, we have thought leadership amongst our youth. The future of BRICS energy sector is in safe hands. All this is testament that as BRIC countries, we take seriously the contribution of young people to global issues, including issues of energy security, access, and just transition. It is not by chance that energy is one of the key areas of discussion and cooperation for the BRICS countries. According to the BRICS Energy Report of 2001, the BRICS countries produced 42% of world electricity in 2020. It therefore tells you, just amongst these 5 countries, the importance of energy. Because of this relative contribution to global energy production and consumption, BRICS nations must therefore play a crucial role in the global energy agenda. And therefore, the youth from the BRICS countries must also play a big role. The theme for South Africa's BRICS for this year is BRICS and Africa Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development, and Inclusive Multilateralism. It is for this reason that in this room and online, we have youth from non-BRICS countries. South Africa's BRICS agenda on energy covers areas of energy security, energy access for all, and sustainable energy transitions. With regard to energy access, limited access to energy has an impact on health, education, the reduction of poverty, and sustainable development. Energy security is therefore key for any economic growth, and access is key for us to reach our development goals. As all of you may be aware, access to energy is still a problem for some regions in the world, including many of the countries that are attending here today and online. In Africa, more than 600 million people have no access to clean, renewable energy, and more than 900 million households have no access to clean cooking sources. The absence and lack of access to energy is a significant issue, particularly for women, youth, and the children. Under its 2023 BRICS Chair, South Africa has put young people at the heart of its priorities, and is ready to lead this international and intergenerational effort to catalyze youth action on enabling reliable and sustainable energy access for all. Ladies and gentlemen, the need for energy security, access, and just transition is actually an opportunity. While it is a challenge, it's an opportunity for all of us, especially the youth. It is an opportunity for all of you to come up with game-changing solutions, taking advantage of various technological developments, including the need for us to address the issues around climate change. BRICS countries have established several structures to strengthen collaboration in energy. I am personally pleased to see that collaboration does not end up in the BRICS countries only, but it extends to other countries, as we had witnessed during one of the addresses, that we have participants here from other regions or other countries outside of the BRICS. One cannot help it but appreciate the move that young people in the BRICS areas are taking. The unifying role the BRICS Youth Energy Agency is playing in coordinating and collaborating youth activities in BRICS and beyond cannot go unnoticed. I would like to commend the BRICS Youth Energy Agency for initiatives such as the Global Partners Network to support youth-led action in a coalition with business and other stakeholders to encourage development of game-changing solutions in the energy sector. This summit provides a platform for all of you as young people and the youth to discuss innovative ideas, strategies, partnerships, and policies that can enhance youth engagement and mobilize energy action to drive sustainable development throughout the world. I encourage you to share your insights, experiences, recommendations, and all ideas to shape the future of the energy sector in the BRIC countries and globally. I am aware that the program is fully packed and comprehensive, covering most aspects of energy, from the role of youth in the energy sector, access to energy, just energy transition, low carbon job opportunities for youth, skills development, green hydrogen, critical minerals, circular economy, and food systems as energy enablers. Robust discussions and participation will lead to fruitful and implementable outcomes. It is my most sincere hope that, owing to our relentless endeavors, this summit will help you take strong resolutions on how to move closer towards attaining your goals. This summit, ladies and gentlemen, must emerge with practical and actionable outcomes that are measurable and time-bound. You have the responsibility to be candid and robust in your deliberations. We are looking forward to the outcome of this summit in the form of a declaration, and beyond that, the implementation of these outcomes, I've been informed that tomorrow you will be visiting some of South Africa's energy projects, and you will learn about some of our public-private energy programs and projects, including the role of youth and women in those projects. As I indicated at the start of my presentation, that this is Women's Month, I cannot conclude my remarks without reminding you about the importance of gender equality. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. There has been progress over the last decades, but the world is not on track to achieve gender equality by 2030. We must therefore pay attention to attaining gender equality through gender and youth mainstreaming and parity in all our work as the BRICS countries. Such stance is not only in pursuit of social justice, but several studies suggest a strong correlation between a country's progress in closing the gender gap and its economic competitiveness. I wish you all the best in your deliberations during this summit. I hope that you will gain new perspectives, form effective, sustainable partnerships, and develop innovative solutions to deal with the challenges we are facing as BRICS countries and the world at large. I thank you.
Thanks, DG. I think that brings us to the conclusion of the opening remarks session. We will then move to the plenary section. But before I go to that, just to echo on what has been said from this panel, is that as the BRICS countries, I think we've got an awesome opportunity to change the narrative significantly, especially within the energy landscape, because we've got all the ingredients that are required to do so. We've got the demand, we've got the supply, we've got the talent, so there is no reason why we shouldn't turn the narrative around as soon as yesterday, because the numbers that the last speaker spoke about of energy poverty, especially in this continent, are unacceptable. Yet, most of the minerals or commodities that are required to make sure that energy is supplied come from this continent, but the West poverty in terms of energy also in this continent. But we've got the people, I believe we've got the requisite talent, and the intellect to turn the situation around. So I think as you deliberate, just bear those facts in mind. And now I would like to hand over to the next moderator of the next session, which is a plenary, which is going to be taking place in this room. After that, there would then be tea, then we'll then give further guidance as to how the program proceed thereon. I would then like to welcome on stage the moderator of the next session, Mr. Niveshen Gavenda, who is the CEO of the South African Wind Energy Association. Mr. Gavenda, over to you.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning, everyone. Let me try again. It's a Youth Energy Summit, so I think we need some energy in the room. So let me try again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. As I've been introduced, my name is Niveshen Gavenda. I am the CEO of the South African Wind Energy Association. It is a non-for-profit industry association representing the voice of the wind sector here in South Africa, advocating for the advancement of both renewable energy and wind energy specifically. It gives me great pleasure to moderate this morning's plenary session at today's BRICS Youth Energy Summit. And with that, let me invite up my panelists who will be your experts for today. So can I have Mr. Bonga Makianya? I believe there's a few people joining us online. If tech support could help me to connect Ms. Joyce Mendez, Mr. Arjit Sen Gupta, Ms. Tatiana Rumiyantseba. And the final panelist here in South Africa is Ms. Bimbani. Colleagues, if you can join me. Good, I'll give a minute for us to connect our panelists online. There you go. Thank you for joining us, panelists. Just to provide some context, I thank the speakers that went before me in your keynote addresses. You've provided a great context for us to start this conversation. In 2009, in its inaugural summit, the BRICS leaders resolved on 16 conclusions around discussions on the global economy, pressing issues of global development, and further strengthening of collaboration within the BRICS countries. There are two in particular that are relevant to today's discussion. The number one is the coordination and cooperation among states in the energy field in the effort to decrease uncertainty and ensure stability and sustainability. this supporting diversification of energy resources and supply, including renewable energy, and the creation of new energy investments and infrastructure. And number 2 is supporting international cooperation in the field of energy efficiency, and particularly focused on steps to fulfill our socio-economic development needs as BRICS nations. Fast forward to 2023, topping the list of 5 priorities of the South African presidency as chair of the BRICS Summit is developing partnerships towards an equitable, just transition. This is a clear testament that energy security remains a key priority for all of us. The inclusion of youth in the energy conversation is necessary for the progress and the success of the sector at large. As we embark on this conversation, colleagues, it is important for us to remember that the BRICS group of companies represent a significant portion of the global population, the economic output, and the energy consumption. These countries possess immense potential for innovation, growth, and advancement in the energy sector. However, the potential will remain untapped if we do not actively involve the youth in the conversation, which we consider the backbone of our societies. Ladies and gentlemen, this keynote session aims to explore the role of youth in the energy sector. It will focus on the priorities and vision of the South African presidency, with a special emphasis on ensuring energy access across Africa and empowering youth as the next generation of energy leaders. The session will provide a platform to discuss innovative strategies, partnerships, and policies that can enhance youth engagement and mobilize their energy action to drive sustainable development in the region. With that, let me turn to my esteemed panel of experts with diverse backgrounds and specialities to further unpack the role of youth in the energy sector. Colleagues, if you don't mind, I'll stand here and I won't join you at your panel. To kick off the session, I kindly request each panelist to introduce themselves briefly and share a few short introductory remarks highlighting their area of expertise and their perspective on the role of youth in shaping the future of the energy sector. Can we start with you, Bonga? Let's go.
Thanks, Chairperson of the session. Greetings to the DMRE led by the Director General, Mr. Jacob Mbele. Greetings to the various sponsors, the CEO of the NYDA, the Chairperson of the BRICS Youth Energy Agency, as well as all young people gathered here from all the various countries. My name is Ubonga Makanya. I come from an organization called the South African Youth Economic Council, which is a lobby and advocacy group that promotes the integration and inclusion of young South Africans into the mainstream economy and into the strategic sectors of the economy, which include mining and energy, transport, construction, and all other monopoly industries in South Africa that directly deals with the burning crisis that we find ourselves in, which is youth unemployment in South Africa. So as a lobby group, we firmly believe that young people should play a central role in the energy space, should play a central role in the just energy transition. Young people must be at the forefront of the creation of new industries that will pop up, and that is why we commend the DMRE as well as the various stakeholders today for putting together this platform. But most importantly, we believe that BRICS, as a progressive trading bloc, should continue to promote the inclusion of young people into these various industries, as well as enhancing trade and industrialization amongst young entrepreneurs from various corners of these respective countries. So we support the emergence of this new trading bloc, which is of course BRICS. We think it's about time that there's a shift in the global balance of forces. moving from a Western and USA hegemony and kind of dominance in terms of global trade, moving towards supporting developing nations, which of course includes South Africa in the main, as well as Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So we believe that BRICS will present new opportunities for young people on the African continent, as well as globally in terms of creating that intra-trade between young entrepreneurs in these various industries. And we think that young people should play a central role on that front. And with the BRICS Development Bank, we firmly believe as a council that young people should be at the center of benefiting from the projects that will be funded by that bank. We want to see that bank to fund real, meaningful economic projects on the African continent, not just in South Africa. And we believe that there are many young entrepreneurs that can benefit from those institutions created by BRICS and all supporting industries. I think I'll just leave it at there for now.
Thank you very much, Bonga. The youth must take their place. DG, you'll be happy to note that my panel is more diverse and inclusive. So I'm going to allow the ladies to take the stage. Ms. Joyce Mendez, please, introductory remarks.
Hello everybody, bon dia. I'm very grateful. I'm not there at the moment. However, my opinion, perspectives will not change. They will be the same. Can you hear me well?
We can, yes.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm introduce myself. I'm at the moment a youth advisor for the Secretary General of the United Nations in terms of climate change. However, the agenda and the perspectives that we are focusing the most is energy transition. As we saw during the opening plenary, there is a direct connection between climate change, energy transition, and our prosperity. And as well as countries from BRICS, Global South, it is an opportunity, or perhaps it is the opportunity for us to be tackling economy, green jobs, overcoming this planetary crisis, and having a paradigm shift as well on topics as well how they were mentioned, like sovereignty and cooperation. So at grassroots level, I have worked co-founding several organizations promoting youth inclusion, youth spaces, capacity building, and as well as South-to-South cooperation. So one of those organizations is the Latin American Observatory for Geopolitics of Energy, and I'm very honored to have 3 of my colleagues being there in the delegation. And some of them are, just as we mentioned, from BRICS country. We also have in our team people from Argentina and people who could not join as well from Colombia. So I believe that for us, we can't wait necessarily until the big structures move, but we can also catalyze the change, right? Like catalyzation is making faster the processes. And I believe that is our role as youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Yes, a round of applause. Let me hand over to Tatiana for her introductory remarks.
Morning, Excellencies, Neveshin, honorable colleagues. Can you hear me well?
We can, yes.
Thanks. First of all, greetings from Moscow, and let me thank you once again for this exceptional opportunity. I'm Tatiana Rumentsova, and I'm happy to work for Russian Energy Agency, which serves as a secretariat, or as a Russian secretariat for BRICS Research Cooperation Platform. And today, in this distinguished expert environment, I would like to discuss with you how affordable and reliable energy supply empowers the implementation of all 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. That's firstly. Secondly, I would like to discuss with you the developments of the climate conference and climate summit that took place in Sharm el-Sheikh, which actually opened new opportunities for the development countries, for the development economies in the sphere of just energy transition. And last but not the least, I would like to discuss with you how energy statistics, information modeling in energy sector, alongside with those developments of the COP27, can actually assist BRICS and global South countries to implement the to foster the implementation of Agenda 2063 and therefore sustainable development for the whole African continent. Thank you, honorable colleagues. I'm certainly looking forward to all of these sessions of our summit, and I wish all of us fruitful work and resultative deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Round of applause, please. I think we've lost a speaker along the way, so I'm going to move on to the last one. So, Ms. Vimbani, please, your introductory remarks.
The delegates of the 5th BRICS Youth Energy Summit, good morning. I hope you're as enthusiastic as I am to be here. And we're young people, so I'm just going to keep this as light and try to be fun as possible. So I am Vumikazi Vimbani. You can call me Mvumi or Vimbani, and I'm with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy here in South Africa, of course. My area of expertise is energy policy and engineering, and you'll soon find out what I think the role of the youth in the energy sector is about. So let me let you in on some South African gossip. Next year, we'll be having elections. And that means that more or less what we'll be hearing about is make your voice heard, make your mark. But I want to say that it doesn't end there. The fundamentals of governance and democracy, they state that making your voice heard goes beyond the ballot paper. It continues in active participation and decision-making processes in the governance of your countries. So, now this is me letting you in on my daily job. So one of the things that we do when we amend legislation or policies or develop them is we have to go through public participation, or rather public consultation. And this particular milestone, we cannot in any way just decide we're gonna go around it. And the whole world is now undergoing an energy transition. And in doing that, one of the instruments that I used to implement this transition is what? Policy. And so what do I think is the role then of the youth in the energy sector? I think that we need to actively participate in the decision-making in our countries. And of course, we are, after all, the citizens of the future, right? The old people won't be there in our future. So I think we need to have a say in what this looks like. So this is what I think is my role in the energy sector. And yes, I am in energy policy. Let's have fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimbani. DG, according to the ANC Youth League, I'm still considered youth. So this is us as youth taking our space. Ladies and gentlemen, I've prepared a particular question for each of our panelists to give you more insights into their specialities and focused areas. So I'm going to start with Bonga. Bonga, it is crucial to address the importance of engaging and empowering young people in shaping the future of the energy sector by exploring strategies to increase youth participation in energy-related conversations. We can tap into their innovative ideas, their fresh perspectives, and passion for sustainability, ultimately fostering a more inclusive and sustainable energy transition that we find ourselves in. This works two ways. So as much as we need to make space for youth, youth needs to take up their space. How do we encourage more young people to engage in the discussions about energy?
Thanks, Chair. And I think that question is kind of, it kind of creates the impression that young people are not already active when they're not already active in the energy space. There are many young people sitting in this room. I was chatting to a lady now who is a supplier to one of the mines in Mpumalanga. I think they supply them with critical services there. So as a council, we've always said that young people are already in these crucial and critical industries. But we need policymakers, leaders of government, leaders of business to start to take young people a bit more seriously when it comes to how they start to think about young people. Because it's evident that throughout the world, wherever you are, if you're a young person, you're always you're always getting the shorter end of the stick. In Brazil, the youth unemployment rate is sitting at about 23%. The general unemployment rate is at 5%. In China, or rather in Russia, the youth unemployment rate is at 17%, but the general unemployment rate is at 3%. In South Africa, the youth unemployment rate is at 62%, but the general unemployment rate is about 32%. Generally, everywhere, even with India, the story is still the same. I think it's also about 22% in terms of youth unemployment rates, but with the general unemployment rates around 4 or 5%. The state of despondency for young people across the world is more or less the same in terms of them being outside of the economic participation and active participation. So BRICS and its leaders need to start to create deliberate policy intervention to deal with youth unemployment, to deal with youth participation in the economy by creating specific and very deliberate policy interventions within these key institutions. For example, with the BRICS Development Bank, there's nothing that stops our leaders when they come now in August of creating a youth fund through that development bank. That says that in the next time we meet, whenever it is, if it's every 3 years or whenever the case may be, this youth fund that we've pumped in money into it, to maybe 3 billion rand, or for the context of international listeners, let's say a $500 million US dollar fund that looks at creating new entrepreneurs, new emerging players in these economies that will become active participants in terms of the energy value chain. That's the type of thinking that we need to make young people to be active players in our various economies, where governments and its leaders can identify that there are young people in renewable energy, there are young people in mining, there are young people in these various energy value chains. How do we then support them through deliberate funding mechanisms, through deliberate policy interventions, and not just reflecting every 3 years saying that young people ought to be at the center, but you're not actually putting in money. So China, Russia, India, South Africa must create new Jack Ma's of the world. They must create new Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. They must create new young entrepreneurs and industrialists. And we've seen that, for example, with the battery storage technologies that are propping up, South Africa has an abundance of all these minerals that are needed to power up the renewable energy industries. BRICS must be at the forefront of saying that young people from all these countries must be the ones who are supplying the world, for example, with battery storage technologies that are found within these BRICS nations, because they do have those minerals. So we ought to create deliberate policy interventions by using the institutions that we have at a BRICS level, even at domestic level, to make sure that we start to see young people being at the center and start to reduce that unemployment number across the different countries.
Thank you very much. An extremely clear call to action of what is needed by young people to participate. Joyce, let me come to you. So climate change, as we know, is an urgent challenge. It is also a global challenge. It is evident that international cooperation is needed to find effective and lasting solutions. This is required to empower and amplify the voices of youth in driving positive change and building a sustainable energy landscape that transcends borders and benefits all nations across the globe. How can international cooperation play a significant role in involving the youth to address global climate challenges and promote sustainable energy practices?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I would like to start by defining perhaps what we think about and what we mean as well about cooperation. From my perspective, we also have different ways, but we have the basic one when we think about cooperation is a top-down approach, right? Is when we think about the involvement of governments, private sector, academia, but there is also bottom-up cooperation way, organizations, not necessarily just NGOs, but I see as well the Youth Energy Agency, it started as, in a way, in this way as well. But also there are other ways of cooperation, and the one that I wanted to focus that I mentioned previously, and I think that is very relevant to our context, is the South-to-South cooperation. Most of the times, especially with the BRICS countries, right, when I hear about BRICS almost 8 years ago in university, and as it was mentioned before, we have several similarities, and not necessarily upon just economic prospects, but as well on different perspectives. So my question and my point is like, are our governments actually sitting down and changing good practices, understanding challenges and changing ideas? They are in a certain level, but we also are doing it. And the fact that we're here, well, you're there, that really makes a tangible cooperation items. You should consider yourself as part, an instrument of the cooperation. What are you going to bring after the summit to your country, to your region? We have a big responsibility as well to be part of it. And within this, we have different perspectives. First, we need to decolonize as well what energy transition means for us in the South-to-South cooperation, as well understanding the importance of sovereignty, especially for BRICS and Global South countries in this moment of planetary crisis. And I see youth as transversal to all these points as empowering, advocating for public policies, but as well doing research for us to do this transition. We just can't wait, right, for the states to move. Again, we need to start doing this change toward sustainable energy practice, targeting, as it was mentioned, energy poverty, green jobs, unemployment, but as well climate adaptation and mitigation. But there is a more important as well aspect, which is to have, and that how BRICS are promoting as well a paradigm shift in the energy transition, in just energy. And just to give you tangible examples, and I will be quite brief about it, my region, Latin America, is very rich in several minerals and several resources. I don't like to call it resources, but they are. So we have, for example, the Amazon, right? We always hear about, we make a relationship of Brazil and the Amazon. We are an environmental power. At the same time, we have the triangle of lithium, Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. So we are somehow powering energy transition. But we need to ask, and that's what we ask in communities when we work daily to daily with people. Who are we powering the energy transition to? Who's doing that energy transition? Is it global north? What about our own energy transition? And I believe, again, a cooperation, integration is the way kind of to tackle it all. Because we have planetary crisis, economy, energy transition. It is overwhelming. And we are seeing our world leaders not being able to tackle everything at the same time. They are not seeing the full perspective of what really cooperation means. And at the same time, I also want to recall that we need to create those new frameworks, preventing imperialism and neo-imperialism as well to our countries. We know and we need to respect our land, and understanding that not just indigenous peoples, but we have been in a process of colonization for around 500 years. Is it going to happen again with energy transition? And my last point, just to close, I know it's been a lot of information. I will invite you as well, and invite you from here to see, understand, and change, create new platforms, create new cooperation projects between, and among yourselves. This is fundamental, and create a space for youth We are here making those spaces, but we won't be here always. And we need youth to be taking as well those responsibilities. So that's my perspective. Obrigada, gracias, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. It's clear that there are examples of success in terms of cooperation, and I think we need more of them. And everyone in the room should be looking at how they build these cooperations with people around you to make sure that we can have more success, not just in the African region, but across the Global South countries. I think it's also important that we understand what we're bringing to the table of the conversation and what we're taking away from that table when we go back home to implement it, and how that's going to benefit the people that we're really trying to benefit out of those corporations. My next question, Tatiana, is for you. Let's delve into the crucial topic of developing just energy transition solutions. In pursuit of sustainability and equitable energy systems, understanding the role of data and modeling becomes essential for the future. We should all explore how harnessing energy statistics and information modeling can play a transformative role in shaping the future of energy and advancing our goals for a more just and sustainable energy transition. So my question to you is really, how can energy statistics and information modeling contribute towards achieving the objective of developing just energy transition solutions by not just the BRICS countries, but the entire Global South?
Well, Naveshan, thank you for this precise, specific question. And I think that the answer would actually be consistent, would follow all the ideas that other speakers just said, just told during this panel. All of us are aware of climate targets that are specific climate targets that are set to not to allow the rise of global temperature and not to allow the global warming to expand. However, the materials of the climate conference COP27 showed us the predictions for critical rise of the temperature in 3 degrees Celsius by 2035, and that's all despite the national contributions, national efforts that are made by the states with the actions targeted at lowering CO2 in carbon gas emissions. Alongside with that, we can see that most of the decision makers' initiatives, most of the policies, investment decisions, subsidies, cooperation, regional cooperation programs, and even civil society engagements are focused on the renewables. The most money go on the renewables programs, the most attention is drawn to this, but still we can see that those contributions are still not enough. On the other hand, we can see that innovations in science and technology actually allow many states to change their energy balances. And different states choose different models for their energy balances. For example, European countries, they chose the path of renewables, to focus on renewables till 2060 and to use new technologies and innovations in this path. But other major economies, for example, Asia Pacific, are focused on the finding the balance between observing traditional green agenda and between actually providing their consumers with affordable and reliable energy resources. And this means that they are using traditional energies, products delivered from traditional energy sectors, however, modernized sectors that reduce the level of emissions. And what we can say about Russia. In this respect, Russia has a really diversified energy balance, and 90% of which are actually clean energies. 40% they go to nuclear power energy, to hydro and to renewables, and 50 to gas. It is expected that the share of renewables in Russia's energy balance would reach 10% by 2035 and 20% by 2050s without shocks for our economy and social sector. But what about Africa? Africa is a really committed member of energy transition, just energy transition dialogue and sustainable development goals achievement. Africa possesses rich mineral resources and other energy resources that are already discovered and that haven't been discovered yet and actually haven't been used yet. Those are hydro, fossil fuels, critical minerals. Still, Africa, each second person in Africa doesn't have access to energy, and each fourth person in Africa doesn't have access to clean cooking technologies. I believe that it's kind of not a fair situation. Africa decided to act. Africa decided to develop through its Agenda 2063. And this agenda presupposes the development of technologies, the development of innovation, the development of logistics, the development of social food sectors, agricultural sectors, and shared energy markets within African Union, and also finding balance between the export of energy resources and import of energy resources. The necessity, first of all, to find best solutions for the internal markets of African Union. I was lucky to participate in Russia-Africa humanitarian and economic forum and summit that took place last week in St. Petersburg. And what I actually heard from leaders from various sectors of economies from Africa is that Africa needs a win-to-win cooperation. Africa doesn't need mentorship. And I believe that other developing countries as well, as my colleague Joyce just mentioned. Africa needs the transfer of technology to be able to use the fruits of its natural wealth and resources for the good of African nations, for the good of African people. And how the low emission sources that were introduced by the developments of the COP27 can help out in this. Those developments show that the resources that were introduced to the energy transition system, low emission energy sources that were introduced to the system of energy transition alongside with renewables, actually to be considered as low emission ones, when evaluating the level of emissions and the side effects on each step of the life cycle of energy resource. What can be, how this is helpful for African countries? Such way African countries to implement their aspirations, national aspirations, and justified, ambitious, but necessary and justified goals of the African Union in Agenda 2063, they would need sufficient, affordable, and reliable energies, which unfortunately renewables solely may not provide. They're not sufficient for this. Also we understand that the renewables are good solutions. They are needed and they should be implemented where they are relevant and where the implementation has been weighted. We still understand that other energy industries should be developed and the investments should be made in them to implement the innovations. What I would like also to mention is that if we're talking about just energy transition and if we want it to be truly just, it needs to be done in a smart way. and it should account all the goals that were set in Agenda 2063. If we're talking about energy transition solely based on renewables, then there can appear threats, there can appear risks to such spheres as the sphere of reliable energy supply, care for indigenous peoples in their historic habitats, flora and fauna habitats as well, preservation, touristic attractiveness maintenance, food system development, logistics, establishment and encouragement of responsible culture use of the resources. I would like to stress actually that in my opinion, just energy transition, it should not only mitigate those risks, it should actually eliminate them. But what we as a youth delegates of this distinguished summit can do, we can actually address our senior decision makers in energy sector, the idea of a joint project carried out by BRICS and Global South countries to develop a methodology that would actually figure out if the country is ready for energy transition and how it is going to carry it out based on scientific approaches, based on SWOT modeling, based on multi-factor analysis. So such way, it would be the point of the starting readiness point would be determined. And the country could actually safely move to energy transition. And the pilot project could be the African Union countries, and further on, the idea could be, the model could be multiplied, the results of the mechanism could be multiplied for use for other developing countries in the world. Also, I suggest for our honorable organizers of this event and to the Youth Energy Agency officials and all of our participants to consider the idea of creating a working group that could actually advocate this initiative and push it forward at their local countries to be the voice that would connect this working group, this community, to the governmental and business decision makers. Thank you so much. Actually, I would say about all the resources, renewables, traditional energy resources, let all flowers flourish and let our youth work on this. I would ask to put my contacts on the screen. I would be really happy to hear from you all, and I'm looking forward to further fruitful cooperation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. A key point that I'm taking out is to really achieve the just energy transition, we need to consider all of the information, and we need to come up with empirical data-based solutions that's going to drive the sustainability agenda forward. And there's a clear call to action, Chairperson, maybe for you in terms of the youth working groups that could be set up to engage each other to make sure that these solutions are actually implemented. Mvumikazi, let's bring it home. As we discuss the critical aspects of achieving a just energy transition in South Africa, it is evident that youth involvement is crucial in shaping the future of the energy sector in the country. Engaging the younger generation in these processes can lead to more inclusive and sustainable outcomes for their own future. How can we promote youth involvement in energy sector policy making and decision-making for the just energy transition here in South Africa?
Thank you for bringing it home. Like I said, the youth are the citizens of the future. We are the ones that are going to live there. But as much as we bring it to South Africa, I'll just take you to Africa a little bit. So Africa is known as the young continent. At some point in my life, I used to think that there was like firstborn continent, secondborn continent. But no, actually it means that it's a continent with the youngest population, or rather the majority of the inhabitants of the continent are young. And so as our collective voice put together, it can be very loud, and we obviously do take up much more space. And so coming now to policy participation, participation in policy making in the country, currently the way it's structured is that government will publish the bill or amended policy or developed policy, and then someone will download it, and then they'll make comments, and then they'll submit it to some email address that has been posted on the front page of the amendment bill, and they'll do this before or on the closing date. That's pretty much it. But the question is, do the youth know about this? And how can we ensure that they are participating in this process? So I would like to think that we could reach the youth where they are. But where is the youth? I'll tell you about myself. Me, Shame. Oh, by the way, Shame is a compliment in South Africa. You'll find me on Instagram, you'll find me on Twitter, and some other social media platforms. And everybody has a phone here. We probably have an account or two in these platforms. So imagine whilst I'm scrolling between the story of friend 1, going to the story of friend 2, the advert that comes in between is something that briefly educates me on how to participate in decision-making in my country. And then I'm caught up in this, and then I click the link that's there at the bottom. And then I answer maybe some few questions, and then eventually there'll be a question that says, what is your sector of interest? And I'll click there, energy. The algorithm will catch this. The next time I'm on Instagram, swiping, then comes something about a bill that has come up, or comes something about what is happening in the sector. I'm definitely going to be moved to get involved if I'm really into this. But how can this be done? So my colleague here is the chairperson of a youth association. Him and I could partner in this regard. So I will give him the heads up about what's happening in the space. He will then come up with his team. They will come up with the advert that will come in between the two stories. And then that's how advocacy will come. That's how education and policy making will come. That is how participation and decision making will come from the youth. And one last thing, digitization. For this summit, there was a declaration that we had to contribute towards. And this happened in a digitized manner. So imagine if, whilst I am online, I get to state what my view about whatever that is happening in the energy sector through a digitized way. At the end, I just click submit. And then it arrives at the Youth Energy Agency or at some other organization that deals with this. And then eventually I have made my say. So now we can have relatively a way to measure, okay, this is what the youth is thinking. A certain percentage of responses came like this, a certain percentage of responses came like this. These were the comments, they suggested this alternative. And it's there, it can be measurable. So, the long story short, how can we enable young people to participate? We can leverage on social media, we can leverage or move on to digitized platforms as enablers for participation. And therefore, we'll make good decisions for our future. Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much. The message is clear. Access, access, access comes down to the age-old saying, information is power, and we need to empower our youth with information. Panelists, I'm going to wrap it up. So I'm going to ask you for a single closing remark, one key takeaway that this audience needs to leave here with. I'm going to ask you to keep it concise. We are running out of time. Let's start with you, Bonga. One key takeaway, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think one key takeaway for me is that South Africa and Africa, through BRICS, must move away from dumping minerals and raw products to the rest of the world and to our BRICS partners. But as we engage in this just energy transition, Africa and South Africa must position itself as an exporter of finished products through using the just energy transition as a leveraging tool. We shouldn't send out lithium and manganese and platinum, but instead we should be sending out batteries for battery storage and all other inputs to production that are necessary for the renewable energy technology space. And that BRICS should also support all of the domestic interests of all these countries in the immediate and short term. I think India and China have done quite well to tell the rest of the world that we have immediate energy demands that fossil fuel industries, fortunately or unfortunately, can meet now. And as such, we can't shut down those industries because they are necessary for our own development as India and China. So I think South Africa and other African countries should take the lead on that front to say that we have immediate energy poverty needs, that we have the necessary capacity through the domestic minerals, coal, oil and gas, and we will continue to develop those assets to make sure that we meet those necessary demands, and that at a strategic point in time, in a long point, then we'll be able to transition. But we must not be pushed in a corner to transition at a quicker rate than we can afford to right now, as we've seen with Eskom and Komati and all the things that are happening locally. So just as a parting shot, let's determine our own destiny as developing nations. Let's determine our own destiny as BRICS and move away from being pushed into a corner quicker than we expected by some of the bigger nations, the global north and the likes, and pursue the domestic interest of our respective developing nations through this progressive trading bloc called BRICS. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonga. Localization and industrialization first. Joyce, your parting remark.
Sure. So from localization as well to globalization, let's don't forget to put in practice the global frameworks in regional perspectives and local actions. Integration and cooperation starts with you, with all of you as well. And I want to leave you with a question, actually. How do you want to be a good ancestor? I know it's quite philosophy, but if you're thinking in the future, we're seeing climate change, energy transition, how do you want to be remembered on the actions that you're doing today? How do you want to be a good ancestor? Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. A clear question. What are you leaving behind? Tatiana, your closing remark, please.
Honorable participants of the summit, I believe that energy transition is a mechanism that actually could be an advantage that could push forward the socio-economic development of the country. But still, if it's done in not in smart way, and if not all factors are evaluated, it could actually damage the economies that are already experiencing energy and financial crises. So we need actually to develop mechanisms that would scientifically assist countries to see if they're ready for the starting point to start this just energy transition, not just energy transition in general that is caused by some global trends, some global fashions, green fashions, and so on. Each country should decide for itself which actions to take and how to contribute to the lowering of the CO2 emissions and how to get to the net zero point by 2060s or 2070s on its own path and enjoying its natural resources for the benefit of its own peoples. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for Tatiana, please. Her point is really assess readiness for holistic solutions. Vumikazi, let's close us out.
The role of the youth in the energy sector is very important. And I repeat, let's leverage on digitization and social media for participation in policy making and decision making towards a just energy transition. Let's invest in the future where we will be. Let's make our voices heard. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, many young Africans have experienced firsthand the challenges of living without reliable electricity, making them uniquely aware of the critical need for clean energy solutions. More than 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa lack access to electricity, a basic need. This amounts to more than 57% of the population of the region. Youth-driven solutions are needed and have numerous advantages, such as creativity, adaptability, and a long-term vision for sustainable development. I need to re-emphasize the need for collaboration and partnerships, which are essential amongst the BRICS nation group, as well as countries and friends of the BRIC nations. With that, I would like to thank the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy for hosting this conversation today. I would like to thank the esteemed panelists for sharing your insights, and I'd like to thank you, the audience, for paying attention. Thank you very much. My name is Niveshan Govender. Have a good conference further.
Thanks, CFO and your panelists. In the interest of time, I would like to make the following announcements. Is that right now, there needs to be a group photo that needs to be taken on the stage. That will then be followed by a 20 minutes tea break. Thereafter, there will be 2 sessions that will be taking place in parallel. One would be energy access session that will be taking place at the venue called Venus, just on the left-hand side, just across the hallway. The other one would be empowering girls in STEM that will be taking place at the venue called Earth, which is also next to Venus. So I would urge us to come on stage so that this group photo can then be taken thereafter, followed by a 20 minutes break. I would suggest that at least by 11:30, we should be in session or starting the sessions of the 2 breakaway discussions that I've mentioned. I know we are running a little bit late in terms of time, but I'm sure if we are efficient with what I've announced, we should be able to get the sessions or the summit back on track. Thank you, colleagues.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, so please, everybody on stage would like to take a group picture.
Everybody, it means everybody.
And must. You will not leave the room.
I think I do not know, there will be overflow, so I don't know, I've never done this before, so.
I doubt it's big enough.
No, we'll see. I announce what I've been told. But it's your thing anyway, so.
Down, please. No, this place is tight already as it is. This place is already tight as it is.
Yeah, the short ones will go down.
Yeah.
So I just want to make this announcement to those